I always thought that we were in turnarounds every time we were losing money. But I guess the technical definition is when you're in a turnaround, you fix the company and you exceed your revenues that you were at prior. A restart is when you're doing 13 million and then you're all of a sudden not on track to do 13 million, or your expenses start to exceed your revenues. So you're on track to do 13 million, but you're on track to spend 13.5. So you could do the same revenue and then lose money still. Those are considered restarts because you're not going to exceed your revenue marks. I didn't really understand the difference of it until I was doing some research and I said, okay, well, I think restarts is what we've really been an expert at doing, because in the call center world, things have evolved and things have changed so dramatically that, when we first started out, we had 20 seats or whatever, and then we had this one client take off, and we had 1,400 employees at one point. A lot of employees, and we were making $50,000 a week, and life was beautiful. We were on track to do 15 million, and we were on track to make 2.5 million in profit. And, we were in Africa having a good old time. And then the client, brought their product to retail, and we got a call at the end of the week saying, hey, they're cutting their media next week by 50%. Well, they were sending 45,000 calls a week all by themselves. And all of a sudden it was going to be 20,000 calls. So all of a sudden we were going to lose $200,000 a week in revenue. And we had about 1,400 employees, and all of a sudden we needed to get rid of around 400 to 500 employees. Well, the labor laws in Mexico say if you fire them, you have to pay them 3 months' salary. And so that wasn't going to happen. And so we had to look at our business as a different animal. And so it was very easy for us to stack rank our employee base and to move all of our super performers into a chain. When I looked, they were each only taking 50 calls. And we were also paying a pretty high commission. We were paying like $3 an order with very limited numbers on the upsell. And I said, okay, what we're going to do is, let's say we're paying $3. We're going to pay $1 and we're going to put more money into the upsells to try to create higher average tickets. But the other thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure Joe gets 4 calls for every 1 that he's taking today. So all of our top performers got 4 times the calls they were getting before. We changed the commission plan to cut the front end commission, but to increase the back end. Now, even though they were still, we cut the front end from $3 to $1, they were still making $4 because they were getting 4 times the call. So it was better for them. They had to work harder to get it. But the other thing we did is we gave them an opportunity to make more money per call by building the revenues and the upsells in the back end. Everything kind of fell into place. What I was looking at is, how do I save the most jobs? Well, I need my super performers to perform better so the media increases. And as the media increases, more of those calls will filter to the performers who aren't as good. And guess what? The guys who don't care and aren't performing, well, I kind of hope they quit anyway. From that point, we fixed it. We ended up doing really our third and fourth quarters that year were 2 of the strongest third and fourth quarters we've ever had in our history, because we had the best performers taking the most amount of calls, which allowed the media companies to ramp up media. And that allowed us to keep more employees because the base of business grew. Even though we lost 25,000 calls, we picked up maybe half those calls through just performing on other campaigns. That was easy, comparatively speaking. I mean, we had a client and they agreed to pay us on agent hours. And it was a low hourly for agent hours. Matter of fact, it was our break-even number. We were trying to be a great partner because what we knew is that to build up this business for Valentine's Day and Mother's Day and the holidays is that this is really spiky and that they were going to have a huge expense. I felt like we did everything we could. Well, we sent out a bill and just our payroll alone was $230,000 for the month. And our bill before the incentives, was for the $230. And they were like, well, no, we're only paying for log-on time. But that was my cost. I wasn't even covering platform. It wasn't covering managers. It wasn't covering long distance. It wasn't covering the lights, the computers, the building. It wasn't covering anything else but the payroll. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't just pay for log-on time? You don't need 150 of these employees yet until this. And they said, oh, well, we understand. We'll talk to you about it at Valentine's Day in 2 weeks. We'll talk to you about it after. At that point, I knew we were in trouble. Right after Valentine's Day, they wanted to wait until after Mother's Day, but I had to press, and hopefully they would give us more money to get through Mother's Day. But they said, you don't agree with how we're paying you, so talk to our lawyers. An estimate between $800 and $1.2 million. We didn't get paid. They gave us $230,000 for January, which was what they agreed to pay based on log-on time. What I did was I said, well, we've got 100 English-speaking people let's find out from our clients if anybody has sales calls that we can take, because we've got the capacity to take 10,000 calls right now. And so we talked to some of our clients, and based on the good relationships we have, one of our clients said, yeah, I'll let you guys take some calls. And so that's when I started training the agents myself. And I trained them all to do English sales, and we started taking calls. And the call center that they were at was doing a $12 revenue per call. The first week we took calls, we were at 17. So we were already making more revenue for every phone call. So they started shifting more calls over. And as we got more calls, we were at $24 a call versus 12. So we doubled the rev per call.